So, recording in progress, how beautiful. So, my name is Rudolf Hinks. I'm one of the founding partners of Winning by Design. It is a pleasure and a treat. Welcome you all here today. I will be managing the chat also. So if you have any questions, please do enter them in the chat, and I will make sure handing them over, pass them through to KD if necessary. Also, for the ones who are only watching the recording, thank you for making the time. So we are here today for the session Managing to Impact, and I would love to introduce the speaker of today, KD, also known as Kevin Dorsey. KD built two unicorn sales organizations and trained thousands of managers and leaders across the globe. So, Kevin, the floor is all yours. Thank you for making the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to do this, y'all, and to dive in, especially, quote unquote, bringing it across the pond a little bit, because we actually ran a session like this, actually about a month or so again, and Roloff hit me up and said, hey, we got to do one that fits this time zone too. Right. And so I was like, absolutely, we can do this all again. And so really excited to be diving in with y'all today. So again, super quick, Kevin Dorsey, everybody calls me KD, and really passionate about leadership development and sales team building. I'm a builder. I like to go in and build from 10 people to 150 people. And to do that, you have to have systems, you have to have processes, you have to put things in place that allow you to scale. And so as we dive into this, anyone here that has seen me present before knows what's coming. If not, this will be the first time that you are going to hear it. But I do have a couple of asks as we kick this off, right? So I used to call these ground rules until I realized I'm not your dad and I'm not your boss. So I can't give you rules, but I will make two asks during these sessions, right? My first ask is, to the best of your ability, be here with me for this hour. Right, this is 1 hour, right? It's 1 hour, and I asked it, be here with me, be present, be paying attention throughout this, because one, attention affects retention, right? If we're doing multitasking, right? If you're, on this, but also in Salesforce, checking out your HubSpot, looking at your crypto wallet, don't look at your crypto wallet, on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram, you can miss something, right? So that's my first part of this, is be here. But also, do we have leaders here? Anyone here leading people? We got leaders of people here, right? So I'm seeing a decent amount of hands there, right? This is also, to me, an example of leading by example, because how would you want your people to show up to a session and to a training? So that's my first ask, be here with me. My second ask is engagement. I'm gonna ask y'all a lot of questions during this session. And I'm a former sales guy, which means I'm okay asking a question and sitting in silence, all right? So when I ask a question, what do you think I'm waiting to see in the chat? Words. Exactly. I love it, Jason. Not even answers. Jason's like, I'm not even gonna give you an answer. I'm gonna say words. Yes, I'm looking for answers. I'm looking for responses here, because this is what makes it for you. Right? If there's no engagement, if there's no back and forth, if there's no responses, this could have been a recording. Y'all made it live, which means we get to engage here, right? So the answers, the responses, and if possible, and this is my last ask, and then we'll get into it, is if possible, I do love cameras on. I love seeing who I'm talking to. I love that engagement. That's why we do this format instead of a webinar where we can't see people. I love this, right? That's just my last ask. So with that, we ready for this? Can I get a thumbs up if we're ready to go? Ready to rock here? All right. I only need one thumbs up. That's all I'll take, and we will rock. So here's what we're going to start with, y'all, that we need to really think about and remember. I got some bad news for everybody that showed up for this. You cannot change results. You cannot change results. And this always throws people off as we start. They're like, then why the hell am I on this webinar? Because here's the deal, y'all. Where do results live? Past, present, or future? Where do results live? Past, present, or future? There we go. Get the engagement here. People are still rocking, right? Results are in the past. That's quite literally what makes it a result. It is completed. It is done. It has already run its course. right? And so, but what we do as leaders really very, very often is we use very results-based language with our people. And it sounds like this. Has anyone here ever said, hey, we need more pipeline? Anybody? Anybody ever say those words? We need more pipeline. What about we need more revenue? Anyone here wants some more revenue? Anyone? Oh, we need to improve our churn rate. Anybody? Right? Okay. Y'all, if all it took to get results was to tell people the results that we wanted, what would we not need? If all it took to get the results we wanted was to tell people the results that we wanted, what would we not need? We wouldn't need us, right? I could lead all of your companies by myself in one Slack channel. Hey, y'all, good morning. Happy Tuesday. More revenue, please. And I could go back to doing thought leader stuff. Okay. The key here, right, is if we want results, we have to get behind them. We have to be able to identify, address, and change what's causing the results, right? Because oftentimes we use very results-based language and we wonder why nothing changes, because it's the result that we're talking about. And so what we're going to be diving into, so there is did anyone here ever see the movie The Patriot back in the day with Mel Gibson? I've seen a couple hands, right? Okay, so it's an old Revolutionary War, time movie. And at one point during the movie, the main character is going hunting with his sons. And they get a deer in sight. Sorry for any vegans. This is just the analogy. It's a movie, right? But they get a deer in sight. And the first thing he says to his sons is breathe, which I would recommend everybody do real quick. Just take a deep breath, because we don't realize how often we hold our breath during the day. But the second thing he says to them is this: aim small, miss small. And I've always loved this quote, and has been a very strong leadership, call it like foundation for me now for the past 12 years, is the idea of aim small, miss small. And the concept here, right, is if you aim at a deer, will you hit it? You're just going to aim at a deer. Like, what are you aiming at? The deer, right? You're not going to hit it. Whereas if you're aiming at the white speck on the left shoulder blade, even if you miss the speck, you're still hitting the deer. And so often in leadership, we use very results-based, hey, y'all, we need 3x coverage. Is that aiming small? We need 3x coverage. Hey, y'all, we need to generate $1 million in upsells next quarter. Like, that is not aiming small. It's aiming at the side of a barn. And then we wonder why we don't hit. Where actually our job as leaders is how small can we get in terms of what will actually change the results. So this idea, and this is what we're going to work on today. And yes, when I say work, I actually mean work. We're actually going to do some stuff during this. This is not going to be one of those webinars where you're only getting ideas. Like, we're actually going to go through this as a group. This idea of aim small, miss small is going to be our guide throughout all this. Because if you want to change your result, you have to change a metric. You can't change a result without changing a metric, right? So if we want more revenue, we need to identify what metrics are behind revenue. That becomes our first focus. Metrics are the leading indicator to results, right? If close rate goes up, what happens to revenue? Right? If close rate goes up, revenue goes up. We're starting to aim a little bit smaller, right? And actually do this for me real quick, just so I have a feel of the room. Drop in the chat just your role, whether you're in like sales dev, closing, account management, SE. If everyone real quick could drop in the chat, because I want to make sure I can tailor this as well. So we got management, VP of sales, sales director, account exec, sales dev. Love it, okay? Sales enablement. So like the key here, y'all, is identifying the metric, right? Metrics are your leading indicators, right? Your leading indicators to the results. But we got to go a layer deeper. What are the leading indicators to a metric? What are the leading indicators to a metric? BP&S, behaviors, processes, skills, right? So where should we actually spend more of our time as leaders? Where should we actually be putting more of our focus? Is it up here at the results, Or is it down here? Metric BPS, metric BPS, metric BPS. This is how you actually change results. And it's slowing down to identify these things so that we actually can. And that's what we're going to be diving into today, is how do we actually identify the behaviors, processes, and skills behind the key metrics to impact the results that we are looking for. So here's what I would like us to also just take down as a note. Okay, leaders, talk about the what. Okay, leaders, talk about the what. What do we need? Well, more pipeline, more dials, faster onboarding. How hard is that to say, by the way? How hard is it to tell people what to do? How hard is that? Anyone can tell people what to do. Anyone can, right? Okay, leaders, talk about the what. Good leaders, right? Well, they start to get into the why. Good leaders get into the why. But whose why does this need to include? Whose why does this need to include, right? We want the what, more revenue, more pipeline. Whose why do we also have to connect this back to? There we go. I got a couple of responses. Like I said, I'll wait y'all out. It's okay. I can chill here. I'll just hang out by myself. Okay. It's that I see the individual that we're asking them to make the change. We have to connect the dots back to their why. Why do they benefit by achieving this what? So good leaders get into the why, but both company why and individual why. Great leaders, they get into the how. How can we achieve the why, and how can we achieve the what? That's what's going to separate the difference between an okay leader, a good leader, and a great leader. Because if I just go to Beth and I say, hey, Beth, need you to bring your close rate up. Is that helpful? Hey, Beth, I need you to bring your close rate up. Does that make Beth better? Just telling her what she needs to do to improve? No, it's completely missing the why, and there's absolutely no how. Okay. Do we ever tell our people what we want without the why and how? Show of hands. Who tells their people what they want without always including a why and a how? I'm raising my hand because I've lived this too. This is not just like figured. I've built my teams. I've made these mistakes. So when we ask for the what, that needs to be our trigger to remember the why and the how. But I do want to talk about this, the how. Does this mean that we just boss our people around? Does it mean I'm telling my people how to do their job? Right? Famita, this is how you're going to go do it. Robert, this is how you're going to go do it. Adam, this is how you're going to go do it. Is that what I'm implying here? I want to be very clear. That is not what I'm implying. It changes, there we go. It changes the questions we ask our people. When you're focused on the how, it changes the questions you ask. How could we make this happen? How would we change our behavior? How should we approach this deal? It starts to get into the how of things, but it doesn't mean we're just telling our people how to do their jobs either. Because how does that feel? Who likes to be micromanaged? Anybody? You don't like to be micromanaged? No? No one? You know what's actually pretty hilarious though? I've never met a micromanager. Never. I've never sat down with someone once and be like, hey, what's your leadership style? And they go, micromanage. Right. Why do you think there's a divide there, by the way? Oh, we've all worked for a micromanager, but I love this. Bamita, do you think they identify as a micromanager? Like they know they're micromanaging?
No, she doesn't know.
Right? How hilarious is that, by the way? It's like no one thinks they're a micromanager, but we have all worked for micromanagers in the past, right? And it's because it's the difference between telling and asking. A micromanager tells you how to do your job. A great leader asks questions to help guide you there. And that's the premise of the how. Right? So these are the first two keys that I want us to take away. What, why, and how. This needs to be the foundation for us as leaders, right? Is what we want, why it benefits them, and how can we get there, but making sure that we are aiming small and missing small with this process, right? Results, you have to change a metric. To change a metric, you have to change a behavior, process, or skill. And we're going to start diving into the metrics now that we need to identify. So if we think of the core 3 buckets of, call it, revenue success, all right, we've got revenue, pipeline, and churn, or revenue, pipeline, and expansion is like the main buckets if you're trying to grow a company that you need to address. Well, the first step we have to do here, y'all, is we have to identify the key metrics behind these results so we can start aiming smaller. So start with revenue. What are the key metrics behind revenue? Meaning if this metric improves, revenue improves. What are the key metrics behind revenue? If this metric improves, revenue improves. There we go. So ARPA, Joaquin, is that like at like contract value? Right, at selling price, right? So we've got sell ACV, right? Contract value goes up, revenue goes up. We got close rate. Close rate goes up, revenue goes up. There we go. Okay, perfect. Ooh, cycle. I love this one. Because sales cycle is an example of what's called a layered metric. Okay, so sales cycle doesn't necessarily affect how much revenue comes in. What does it affect? Doesn't necessarily affect how much revenue, it affects when it comes in. But what do we know? The longer the cycle, what other metric tends to come down? The longer this deal keeps going, what other metric tends to come down? Win rate, right? So sales cycle tends to be a really good win rate leading indicator of like, okay, it's going, it's a win rate problem. It's not necessarily a cycle problem, okay? So we've got that one. Forecasting, oh man, we don't have enough time to go into forecasting today and the black box that is, but maybe that's another webinar that we will lead, okay? Here's another key one on revenue. Pipeline, right? Because if pipeline goes up, does revenue go up? Right? If pipeline goes up and everything else stays the same, revenue can, but you have to track the 2 V's of pipeline. And this is very, very important. There's pipeline value and pipeline volume. This is very, very important that you're tracking both, okay? Who here has ever been told like 3X coverage? Anyone ever been told like 3X coverage? We need 3X coverage. We need 4X coverage, right? I'm seeing some nods here. Okay, so here's where companies can get into trouble. First of all, 3X coverage only works if your close rate is what? 3X coverage only works, there we go, quick math, if your close rate's 33%. Okay, well, that's our first problem. Does anyone here have a closer that has less than 33% close rate? Are we still telling them 3X coverage? Because that's a problem. Their close rates don't align. But then here's the next one, and Robert just nailed it. The difference between value and volume. So more often than not, when companies talk about pipeline coverage, it's a value, meaning if my quote is $1 million and I want 3X coverage, how big do I want my pipeline to be? My quote is $1 million. I want 3X coverage. I want 3 million in value. But what if that 3 million in value is only made up of 7 deals and my close rate's 20%? Even if this equals $3 million, how many deals am I going to close? What's 20% of 7? Y'all didn't know you're going to have to do math today. Everyone's like, damn it, why did I show up to this? Math in the afternoon? Get out of here. What's 20% of 7? How many deals am I going to close here? Regardless of the value. 1.4 deals, right? And quick show of hands, who here has ever closed 0.4 of a deal? Sure, it feels like it sometimes, right? Like you feel like you got half a deal. We're only going to get 1 deal. the volume isn't high enough. So you need to make sure that your coverage also involves volume, because a lot of times the value might be there, but if you've only got 7, you're getting 1, where if you need 3 deals to get there. So we have to track those things: pipeline value, pipeline volume. Okay, this is revenue. This is foundational. Now, are there more revenue metrics to track? Of course. Most revenue problems are right here: ACV problem, close rate problem, cycle problem, volume or value problem on revenue. So now let's move to pipeline, because oftentimes companies treat pipeline like its own metric. We just need more pipeline. There are metrics behind pipeline. What are the metrics behind pipeline? Meaning, if these metrics change, pipeline goes up. What are some pipeline metrics? If this metric changes, pipeline goes up. Here we go. Conversion rate. And if that improves, pipeline goes up. Number of leads. All right, so that'd be number of leads in or number of leads that we are working out, right? Response time, love it. Especially if we're talking about inbound leads, right? How well are we getting to those leads? Because also, by the way, response time, layered metric. What does response time impact? What metric does response time impact? The faster our response, generally, the higher the conversion, right? So it's another layered metric. Because can you get to a lead fast but do it poorly? Hell yeah, you can, right? So there's a lot of companies out there like, oh, we have really good response time. Okay, but your conversion still is awful, right? So the response time isn't helping you, right? And then Robert, we're going to jump into the upsell, cross-sell opportunities here in a second when we get to churn expansion, because that's going to be important. What about activity? If activity goes up, can pipeline go up? All right, so we've got dials, we got emails, okay? But 2 very important metrics you have to track for dials that a lot of companies I still see aren't tracking: connect rate and conversation conversion rate. Okay. Meaning, how many calls do I need to make to talk to 10 people? And when I talk to 10 people, how many of them say yes to a meeting? If you don't know these numbers, if you don't know your connect rate and your conversion rate, what can you not accurately set? If you don't know your connect rate and your conversion rate, you cannot accurately set the targets and the KPIs, because we don't know how many dials it will take to get to the number, right? Oftentimes, y'all, companies are making up their activity metrics like this. 60 calls sounds about right. Well, if you don't know your connect rate, if you don't know your conversion rate, you might actually be asking your reps to do too little, or you might actually be asking them to do too much based off what is required. So we need to know our connect rate and our conversion rates. This is so, so important. And then emails. What do we got to track about emails? What do we have to track about emails if we want more pipeline? This is also very important. Open rate, response rate, bounce and delivery, right? Are they even getting through? Click rate, right? Are people clicking? And by the way, click is big in terms of engagement. Okay, that's someone who should get a call. And then perfect. Robert's on fire right now. Sentiment. Are the responses good or not? Okay. Who here would like an email, a cold email that will get you a 40% response rate? Anybody want one of those? I got one for you. Okay, here's how it goes. You write the email and it says, please respond back if you'd like me to never contact you again. Guess what, y'all? You're going to have a really high response rate. Is your sentiment good? No. Everyone's telling you to never contact them again. So you have to track both of these. Okay. So this is really, really important. And one other one that I want to throw out in front of y'all, not just number of leads, but number of touches per lead. Are they working a lead fully? Okay, because this one gets missed a lot, where it looks like the activity is good, but if you only call a lead twice, are you going to convert a lot of meetings? I call a lead 2 times. If you only follow up with your pipeline twice, right? So the number of touches per lead. Okay. Now, real quick, I'm going to pause. Which side has more metrics, revenue or pipeline? Y'all see this? Okay. There are significantly more metrics on the pipeline side, but what metrics do most companies obsess over? The revenue metrics, when a lot of revenue issues are actually pipeline issues, and we're not giving it the same granularity that we need to as we would on the revenue side. Okay. Oh, last one for pipeline, show rate, because do all meetings show up? And not all meetings show up, so we got to throw show rate on here as well. Okay. And then we get to churn or expansion. And these metrics start to change because revenue in these pipeline metrics, these can be individual metrics, right? What is Falk's close rate? What is, Joaquin's pipeline value, right? They're individual. When you switch to expansion and churn, they start to become account metrics. What are the metrics of the account? So here's what I'll ask. What account metrics, meaning if this is happening with the account, the likelihood of expansion goes up. Or if this is happening with the account, the likelihood of churn comes down. What are some account metrics where if this is happening with the account, the likelihood that they churn goes down? Yes, here we go. So product usage. Okay, if someone is using the product a lot, that is a good sign. Ooh, Beth gave a great one here. Time to onboard, time to impact. Are those two different things? Time to onboard, time to impact are two very different things. A lot of companies track time to onboard, speed to launch, but they don't track speed to impact. Which is actually more important? Speed to launch or speed to impact? Which is most important? This isn't gonna be the whole thing, but I might wait for all 35 people on here to answer this question, just so that we are clear. Speed to impact matters more than speed to launch. But so often companies focus on speed to launch and they forget time to impact. They might not even know what impact is for the customer. Okay, so that's one. So we've got utilization, time to impact, time to onboard. What would be another good account metric where if this is good on an account? I saw NPS. Now, one thing I do like to call about NPS, okay, and if we have some CS leaders here, how many people respond to the NPS surveys? If I have 100 customers and I send out the NPS survey, how many people actually respond to that survey? What do you think? Send it to 100 people. How many people? Not enough, right? Like 10%, 15%? How great of a measure of that is that then for everyone? And then yes, Falk just nailed it. You're also going to get the extremes. You don't get the silent majority, right? You get the extremes. The people that are really happy love to fill out NPS, and the people that are really mad love to fill out NPS. It's that middle ground that we tend to miss, but we'll use that as like, oh, look, everybody's happy. Huh? Are they? What about the 90% that didn't respond? Oh, Robert, this is a great one. Engagement, right? Of like, how often are we actually having conversations with our champion, right? What is that engagement level, right? We can look at things like logins. We can look at that. What about there's usage and there's product utilization? What's the difference between product usage and product utilization? Because these are important metrics to track. Usage tends to mean that I'm going in regularly, right? I'm going into the product, I'm using it. Utilization means they're using all of the product. Y'all follow me here? Who would like to see better utilization, meaning customers using more of the product? Okay, there's a difference there, because if we're honest, what percentage of our products do our customers tend to use? I think about it. We got all these features and all like the functions and all the gizmos and gadgets and the buzz and the buttons. Okay, that utilization sometimes tends to be low, and then Daryl just nailed it. Okay, utilization shows where there's expansion opportunities, where there's education opportunities. If they're not using it in full, or they've used all the features, well, that means they need the next one above it. Okay, but do you see where we're going with this, y'all? I'm gonna pause real quick. There's a lot on the screen here, but do you see what we've just done? This is SaaS right here. Every company, and I don't like absolutes, but every company that I go into to work with, to consult, something's off here. Something is off here. And when we can find it, that's how we can address it. Whose job is it to identify the number one metric? Point them out once you find them. Whose job is it to identify the number one metric? This is why we are here. This is why we are leaders, is to identify what is the number one metric holding back revenue? What is the number one metric holding back pipeline? What is the number one metric holding back our expansion or our churn opportunities? This is why we are here, is to identify these. Now, you might have heard me say it, number one. Why do I keep saying number one? The number one metric for revenue, the number one metric for pipeline, the number one metric for revenue or expansion. Why do I keep harping on number one? Okay. Leader to leader, do we ever try to improve it all? Do we ever try to fix everything? Anybody? Anyone ever? Okay. What happens when we try to fix everything? What happens? We try to fix it all. Okay. Nothing. Some of y'all might have OKRs right now that quite literally like, hey, we're going to improve close rate, ACV, get to lift a number of leads worked, and take our pipeline up by 10%. It's a lot of priorities, right? Actually, and funny enough about priorities, I think it was, they've gone back, it's like early 1800s was the first time that the word priority became plural. What is priority supposed to mean? Priority. Priorities actually didn't even exist in the Latin form of the word. It was priority. It was singular. Yet we try to do all of it. So we have to identify the number one metric leading to the result. This is very, very important. But this is the bow tie, y'all. This is the bow tie that we talk about at Winning by Design all the time. Is everyone here is familiar with like the funnel, right? You got your leads, you got your conversion rate, you got your book rate, got your show rate, got your, close rate, right? And down here we get money. Yay. Where do we actually make most of our money in SaaS? Is that the close? Where do we actually make most of our money in SaaS? Where do you get your valuations in SaaS? Where do you get like the revenue multiples in SaaS? You actually get it on the back end. Right? This is why we talk about the bow tie is, yeah, we got the close, but now we've got onboarding. Now we've got speed to impact. Now we've got utilization. Now we have cross-sell. Now we have renewal. This is where we make all of our money, right? And it's making sure that we are tracking these metrics throughout this entire process so we can pull the levers that we need to. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to dive into this framework of how to aim small, miss small. And it's called REX, right? So we've mapped out the metrics. We now know the key metrics behind the results. Now we're going to get into how do we actually change those metrics? Because again, I can't just tell people, I can't just say, bring up close rates. So here's how this works, y'all. The R in REX stands for results. The R in REX stands for results. But here's what I need us to remember. When we're using REX, the result is not revenue. The result is not pipeline. What's the result? If I want to improve revenue, I have to improve what? I want to improve revenue, I have to improve what? Throw one in the chat for me, make sure we're still paying attention. I know it's getting afternoon, evening for some of y'all. You might already have wine in the glass. I don't. It's just water, but you know. Okay, conversion rate, right? It's not about revenue, it's about conversion rate. We're aiming smaller. We need more pipeline. Well, it's not about more pipeline. It's about speed to lead. It's about show rate. We need more expansion revenue. It's not about expansion revenue. It's about utilization. It's about QBR schedule, right? The result is the metric behind the result that you're looking for. This is the first step, is if you want a result, you have to identify the metric behind it in order to actually address it. That's step one. Step two, E. E stands for efforts. So efforts are, what are the things 100% in our control to do? What are the things 100% in our control to do, right? We can do this. It's just a choice, right? So things like activity, number of leads added to sequence, proposal decks created, pulling a report. And we're going to map these out in a second. But like, these are the things in our control that if we did, are attached to that metric, right? So we're starting to aim even a little bit smaller. All right, I want, Ian to bring up close rate. Great. What are the things in his control that affect close rate? We're starting to aim a little bit smaller. Then we get to the K. K stands for knowledge, AKA what do they need to know in order to improve the metric? What do they need to know? Knowledge is taught, okay? But also here's the other key about knowledge. You want to make knowledge referenceable, not rememberable. Have y'all ever sat down and mapped out all the things your people need to know to do their job? Like, y'all, it's crazy, okay? Quick show of hands. Who here has competitors? Anyone got competitors? Anyone got more than one competitor? All right, good. Who here has multiple personas they go after? All right, you got multiple personas. Anyone here just have like a one feature product? No one's got one feature? Okay, so who here has like a multi-feature product? Yep, okay. Now, do any of your products do different things for different personas? Okay, and then you got multiple stages in your sales process? What about objections? Anyone here have more than one objection? Maybe more than one objection per competitor, per persona for the product line? Y'all see where I'm going right now? If your team is trying to remember all of this, what can we almost guarantee? They are trying to remember all of that, especially when they're on a call. If your people are trying to remember things on a call, what can they not do? If I'm trying to remember what I need to do, if I'm trying to remember what I need to say, what can I not do on that call with a prospect or customer? Can't listen. Sometimes sales and CS reps get a bad rap for not listening. You know why a lot of them aren't listening? Because they're trying to remember. There's so much spinning in their head. You have to make it referenceable. This is what playbooks are for. This is what checklists are for. This is what building those systems are for. So I don't have to remember. I can reference it, right? So I have built 3 teams over 150 people, all of which in very short periods of time. And the book that I think had the most impact, truthfully, on my ability to scale teams was the Checklist Manifesto. Has anyone here read the Checklist Manifesto? Someone Google it. You don't count, Antoine. I know you've read it, okay? Someone drop it in the, there we go, Roloff's already ahead of me. Checklist Manifesto, okay? Quite literally changed my career as a leader because it taught me how to make things referenceable for my people, to do things at scale, right? Not having to remember it. And what's great about this book, it's not written by a salesperson. It's not even written by a business person. It's written by a surgeon. Because what they found is checklist lowered death rates in hospitals. Checklist lowered infection rates in hospitals. Anyone here ever been on a plane? Got any travelers here? Anyone been on a plane before? What does your pilot do before every single flight? Before every single flight, what does your pilot do? They go through checklist. So if checklists work for pilots and surgeons, hopefully not a stiff drink, but as long as I got a checklist, I'm actually still okay with that for a second. Okay. If checklists can work for pilots and surgeons, you think they could help our reps out too? Because here's the beautiful thing. Y'all already have checklists. Just where do they live? Where do your checklists live? You've got them. They're just up here. Get them down on paper. What does a good disco call look like? What's that 10-point checklist? What does a good de-escalation call look like? There's that 10-point that. You have to build that to make it referenceable so they don't have to remember it. And then the last part of Rex, the S, is skill. Okay. What do they need to be good at to improve the metric? Skills. Now, real quick, y'all, what does it take to get good at something? If you wanted to develop a skill, anything, sports, cooking, music, singing, art, any skill, what does it take to get good at it? Practice, repetition, and feedback. Practice, repetition. Oh, Robert nailed it. The purposeful practice. Because can you practice with no purpose? Right? Like you just kind of whatever else. Purposeful practice, repetition, and feedback. So today's topic is not about skill development, but I always step on my soapbox for a second to talk about this. For most companies that I go into, you know who their people are practicing with? And if you look at maybe your own company, you know who your people are practicing with? They're practicing with the prospect. They're practicing with the customer. Is that where you want your people practicing? In the game, right? I listened to one of Maria's calls. I say, Maria, I loved it. Hey, handle the objection this way. Maria goes, great, I love it. And then Maria goes and tries to do it on a call. She's now practicing with the prospect. That's not where you get good, right? Has anyone ever heard the quote, hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard? Ever heard that one before? Hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. So unfortunately, not entirely true, okay? Because here's why. If Adam is 2 times better at something than me, AKA he has twice as much skill, how much harder do I have to work to beat Adam? He's 2 times more skilled than me. How much harder do I have to work to beat Adam? At least 2.5 times harder. Right? So when I work with leaders and they harp to me about their team isn't working hard enough, I almost always bring them back to, are they good enough? Because if you're better at something, funny enough, you have to do less of it because you're better at it. So skill development, practice, repetition, feedback. Are they getting that from you, their leader, their manager, their peers? They have to practice the skill because if not, nothing improves. So this is the framework. Now we're going to do one live to wrap this up. Okay. So we look at Rex. Okay. Someone give me a revenue metric. Someone give me a pipeline metric. Someone give me an account metric. So someone throw out just a revenue metric. Someone throw out a pipeline metric. Someone throw out an account metric. And we're going to do this live. So everyone gets this and we get to work on this together. So let's throw one in here. Okay. So we got ACV. Would help if I actually, did I just become dyslexic in real time? There we go, ACV, okay? ACV, we got a revenue metric. I'm gonna steal the pipeline metric. I'm gonna steal dials because this is one that I think people overlook sometime. You'll see what we go through. And then let's give me an expansion one, utilization, usage, logins, NPS score, like someone throw out an expansion or churn metric. Oh, yes. All right, let's do that one. I love that. Speed to impact. Okay, so here we go. ACV, efforts. What is in a rep's control that if they did would impact ACV? It's in a rep's control. If they did these things, ACV would go up. What's in a rep's control that if they did would impact ACV? Yes, targeting. Okay. If I'm targeting bigger accounts, that is in my control, that can affect ACV. I can't affect the leads coming to me, but I can control the leads I'm going after. So picking bigger accounts, that's in my control, that can affect ACV. I love it. Research. Does account research impact ACV? It absolutely does. So that's a good one. What else is in my control? Ooh, power price. Can you come off me real quick and tell me what power price is? Because I love this term. I just want to understand it. What's power price?
Sell for a higher price than average pricing.
There we go, right? AKA, what was the proposal? Right? Like, what price did we put in front of them? That is in our control of what price did we put in front of them? What was that proposal like? Does follow-up impact ACV? Like properly following up with our pipeline, right? Because we also know this, back to sales cycle, the longer the deal, not only does close rate tend to come down, what else tends to come down the longer the deal goes? Y'all ever notice this? Did anyone, I don't know, run end of quarter promotions or discounts for their team? I'm sure nobody on this call had that occur, but I've heard some companies throw promotions out at the end of the quarter or the end of the year, because the longer that deal goes, right? So the timing, the follow-up, let's jump to dials, because this is one that gets treated oftentimes as its own how, and it's not. What is in a rep's control that if they did would lead to more dials? What is in a rep's control that if they did would lead to more dials? Because again, if I just ask my team to make more dials, that's still what? There's no how in there. What is in control? Okay, time management. Go a layer deeper even on that, Daryl. Like, how would good time management show up? Right, so there's time management. How would good time management show up? What does someone with good time management do? What does someone with good time management do? Okay, organization. Okay, that is in their control to be more organized. Ooh, checking best time. All right, best time to reach out, number of prospects added. That's always one of my favorites. It's like, oh, we need to make 60 dials. Well, if you need to make 60 dials, guess what you need to have ready? 60 names. If you don't have 60 names ready, you can't make 60 dials. So the problem is not the dials. The problem could be the number of people they have ready. What about calendar blocking? Is calendar blocking in my control, right? To actually have it blocked on the calendar, okay? This is so important, is like blocking. Ooh, Antoine, another one. Do I need to know how many dials I need to make? Would that be helpful if I actually knew to the number how many dials to make? Would that maybe help me make those amount of dials? Right. So knowing your number, that is in my control. So do you see how we're aiming smaller, y'all? Like, if who's trying to call me? One of these times I'm going to answer that call live in a training to see how it goes. Put the sales rep on the spot. Be like, hey, just so you know, I've got 40 amazing sales leaders, from Europe on the call with me right now. What's your pitch? That'd be fun. I'd have a good time with that one. But anyway, back to this. Okay. We're aiming smaller. I'm not saying to someone going, hey, Antoine, like, we need your dials to come up. It's like, hey, we need dials to come up so we can get you on pace for that, Prez Club award you're looking at. Is our calendar blocked? Do we have enough prospects to work through right now? How can I help you organize your day better? We're starting to aim smaller. Let's go to speed to impact. What is in a CS rep's control, in their control, that would impact speed to impact? What is in a CS or pre-sale or onboarding, depending on the term, in their control that if they did would impact speed to impact? I know we're almost to the end. Doesn't mean I'm going to not wait y'all out still. Okay, so what Robert just put, in order to get someone to impact, what do you need to know? If we're trying to affect speed to impact, we actually need to know what impact means for them, right? So we need to know like that impact, but how would we know the impact? You know how shocking it is to me still that pre-sales and AEs rarely talk? That onboarding and the closer rarely talk. There's not a strong handoff there. Is that in control? Can a CS rep or an onboarding rep proactively schedule a call with the closer to understand these things? That is in their control, right? Number of touches, creating an actual plan, actually creating the plan, like mapping it out. That's in their control, okay? This is what we mean about aiming small, miss small. We identified the first one, this. Now we go lower. Let's go to the K. What do I need to know to improve ACV? What do I need to know to make more dials? What do I need to know to improve speed to impact? So I'm going to throw this one down here already. We know we need to know what impact is. What else do I need to know in order to improve any of these things? If I want to improve ACV, if I want to improve dials, what do I need to know? What do I need to know? Yep, you're not off the hook yet, y'all. I know. You're like, normally they don't ask so many questions in this. It's all right. That's why we're here. We need to know. And I'll throw this out. If the silence here is because we're not sure, what does that mean we need to do as leaders? If we're not sure what a rep needs to know to improve ACV, if we're not sure what a rep needs to know to improve dials, if we're not sure what a rep needs to know to improve, right, speed to impact, what do you think our assignment is? We need to go find these things out because these are the hows. What do I need to know, right? Well, in order to increase ACV, do I need to know their budget? Do I need to know their pain points? Do I need to know how our product can solve those pain points? Do I need to know how to discount, how to trade, right? Because like one of the things we teach a lot is you don't discount, right? You don't negotiate, you trade. Trade means both sides are actually getting something, whereas negotiation tends to mean only one side got something. So we trade. There we go. ICP. There we go. See, right? I know those are out there right now. We need to know these things. We need to know the ICP. We need to know like their pain points. We need to know the utilization that they're at right now. We need to know these things. These are the things that we document and we teach. And then we get to skill to wrap this up. What skills do I need to increase ACV? What skills do I need? AKA, I need to be good at this. I need to practice this. What are some skills that impact ACV? I mentioned one already, knowing how to trade. That's pretty important, like knowing how to trade. What about justifying the price? Is that a skill? Like how to justify the price, all right? So your justification in there. Disco. Running a powerful demo. Okay. What skills do I need to make more dials? Because often, y'all, I'm just telling you this from experience, when it comes to activity metrics, they tend to be a confidence issue more than they are a competence issue. They're not confident in it. They are afraid to do it. So we can harp all we want on someone not working hard enough, but reality, it tends to be they don't feel good at it yet. Right? So if someone was stronger with objection handling, if someone knew how to make a great intro, if someone knew how to do a better value prop, that could lead to more dials because they feel good at it. And then same with, speed to impact, creating a mutual action plan. And that's a skill set. Second layer, questioning, connecting the dots, right? Like all of these things here, y'all, this is aim small, miss small. So now when I sit down with John, now when I sit down with Derek, I'm not saying we need more revenue. I'm saying, hey, our revenue isn't where we need it to be because our deal size is a bit too low. If we could just bring that up 10 points in this quarter, you'd be on pace to hit the OTE marks that I know that you want. Now I dove in You're targeting the right people. Your follow-up is strong. I know you're prepping for the calls. It also really sounds like you know the product and you know the persona. I think if we just worked on our disco and our trade this quarter, we could really bring ACV up. Is that something we could work on together? That's aim small, miss small. And did you notice what I did along that conversation? Did you catch it? I also gave a lot of what. Let's see if you catch this as we wrap. Right? I said, Thomas, you're doing this well, and you're doing this well. And I know you know this, and you do understand this. It's the reinforcement to keep those behaviors and then narrow down on the area that we need to focus. Okay. Now, we just did this live. How long did this take? How long did this take to do to get the checklist out of your head and down on paper? This was 15 minutes-ish, doing it live, back and forth. If you had this all documented, who else could use it? If you had all your key metrics and then Rex documented behind it, who else could use that framework and that guideline? Your people can. This is how you start to lead at scale. I'm having a one-on-one with Roloff. I'm saying, hey, Roloff, we want to talk about speed to impact this one-on-one. Go through the quick Rex checklist for me and see kind of where you think we might need to focus this week. It can be more empowering, right? So this is how you map out Rex, the metric, the things behind it, and it changes the questions that we ask our people. We're not just telling them to bring up ACV, because also this right here is our job. Number one metric, what's causing it? That's why we're here. Number one metric and what is causing it. Because once we can identify the cause, now we can come up with a plan to actually address it. So to wrap on this, y'all, you can't change a result without changing a metric. We can't change a metric without identifying the behaviors, process, and skill behind it. And that's where Rex comes in, is to identify these things. And so I would give y'all an assignment. Identify these metrics. Identify the BPS. Identify the Rex, and then document it, right? Because part of what we do right at Winning by Design is we help with the documentation and we help with the implementation of this, coaching, training, everything along those lines. So if you got value from this, y'all, give me a thumbs up. Did we get some juice from this? We got something we can use from this? There we go. We got some value, right? So if you want to learn more, reach out to Roloff, reach out to myself. If you learned something, we love seeing the screenshots show up on LinkedIn. Grab a screenshot, share it. But I appreciate y'all. Thank you for the energy and engagement today. Good stuff, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you all. Before I'll let you go, I just want to highlight, if you want to learn more, we are organizing Managing to Impact programs in December and in February. All of the details will be in a follow-up email, and there will be an early Christmas gift in there as well. So thank you all. Thank you all for being here, and have a nice evening. Thank you, Katie.
Later, y'all.